And when you see it, you're going to go, oh, now I know what she means. It's so clean and clear cut that literally anybody off the street can understand it. Plus, it also shows you your critical path as well.
Awesome.
Or if your project is crashing, that's the real good use of it.
I appreciate it, Lisa.
And also too, Jamie, never send over an advent calendar to my dog again. Because she's crying and she's already on Friday's treats.
Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
If this arrives at your house.
This is how hers looked today. Okay. She is literally sitting by it and crying.
Oh, Lisa, remind me what your little dog's name is, because I was going to put that in the text, but I forgot.
Tasha,
that's right. I can only remember your little dog that passed a while ago. I remember.
Oh, Loki. Loki's a love. Come here.
That is so funny. Lisa, I have to tell you a funny story just real quick that happened to me over Thanksgiving weekend. So I am known to have the odd white Russian upon occasion. And I also have a little dog that loves milk. And little Wayne drank almost an entire white Russian and was like stumbling, was falling. I had to take him he had to spend the night at the emergency vet because he was full on drunk.
Oh my gosh, Jamie, that happened to my little dog once. He, during a walk, found somebody's marijuana and ate it.
Oh, wow.
And then I went online and everyone's like, oh, it's a big deal. Take your dog to the vet because they don't have the enzymes in their liver to process the alcohol.
It was so scary.
It was crazy.
I was like, oh my God, he had a stroke. What's happening? It was so sad.
So Lisa and I connect over the small dog world. That and the fact that she lives like 2 blocks from me.
And also you also have, I also know people whose dogs got stoned on secondhand smoke.
See?
Oh.
There's a part of me too that's like, it's funny, but I did kind of poison my dog. So like.
No, it's not kind of you poisoned your dog. Your dog poisoned itself. And that was like his Christmas present is the ER bill.
Yes, exactly. the very unfortunate sense of the ER bill.
Yeah,
right,
because the only time
I'm turning over to Erica to start our meeting.
Oh no, I'm actually making flavored vodka this week.
What kind?
Skittles.
Oh, I've heard about that one. I've heard of that. It goes well. I've heard of limoncello versions of the Skittles one. It's awesome.
I'm doing
Hola,
Skittles.
buenas noches a todos.
And I'm doing peppermint infusion. So
buenas noches.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, I know that we are right at time, so we will go ahead and get started. Nothing like every meeting, Lisa always gives us something to feel jealous about. And this month it is the Skittles flavored vodka. So thank you for that, Lisa. Much appreciated. For those of you just joining us, good evening and welcome. This is our AB 617 South Central Fresno Community Steering Committee meeting for December. It's our last meeting of the year. And while we are waiting for everyone to join, if you could just take a look at the slide on the screen right now that shows you how to make sure that you have the right screen name showing. We will go into more detail about this in just a few minutes, but we always do have members of the public on the line. And so we want to make sure that those that are just joining for the first time or members of the public are able to log in. We're going to get started in just a couple seconds. We also ask those of you to mute yourselves as you join. You will not automatically be muted, but if you could mute yourself while we're waiting, we'd appreciate it, and we'll go through etiquette in just a couple seconds. Jen, would you please toggle, or Hannah, would you please toggle to the Spanish speaking slide to make sure that our Spanish speakers can log into the phone line if they need to?
Yes. Sorry, let me make Hannah co-host.
Thank you.
Mientras estamos esperando, buenas noches, soy Marisela del Distrito del Aire. Si necesitan la interpretación, tienen que seleccionar, y ahorita en un momento es cuando van a poner la intérprete para poder hablar con ustedes y para ver el logotipo, porque ahorita todavía no lo han puesto, pero en un momento va a poder ver el logotipo de interpretación. Y luego va a poder seleccionar el idioma español y luego silenciar audio original, que significa mute original audio. Y si tiene algún problema, nomás avísenos por chat. Y ahorita vamos a tratar de ponernos para el servicio de interpretación en un momento. Y si necesita que participar por teléfono por alguna razón, no puede entrar a Zoom o tiene problemas, puede llamar al número de teléfono. Espera un momento. El 888-431-3632 con el código de acceso 940-5600 y el signo de número. Gracias.
Gracias,
Thanks,
Marisa.
Mari.
De nada.
So we've got a pretty good group on the line, so we will go ahead and get started. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Erica Manuel. I'm the CEO of the Institute for Local Government, or ILG. We have been working with the Air District and this Community Steering Committee to facilitate this committee for the past 18 months. And as always, it is fantastic to see you all today, especially this is our last meeting of the year. So happy holidays in advance to everyone, and we're going to close out the year really well. I am joined today by my colleagues Hannah Stelmakovich and Kim Danko, who are going to be working behind the scenes to manage the logistics of this virtual Zoom meeting. You may not be able to hear them, but they are waving their videos right now. And we did just triple check to make sure that all of our Spanish speakers are set up, but I want to make sure that before we go into too many of the logistics that Kim and Hannah are going to walk through, I want to make sure that the Spanish speaking team has everything they need to participate in this meeting fully. Mari, I think you gave the instructions. Did you have anyone with any concerns or any issues that you can hear of?
No, I just need to go ahead and have someone make me an interpreter because we still don't have the interpreting option at the bottom.
Got it. We will have Kim and Hannah handle that.
Thank you.
And they should be able to get that done in just a second.
Okay, Mari, let me know if that worked.
Do you see interpretation globe on the bottom?
Yeah, I put her English to Spanish.
I think she's in the Spanish channel now.
Yep, it's working.
Okay, cool.
All right, we're all set. Wonderful. All right, well, now we'd like to go over the agenda for today's meeting. Today's agenda is showing on your screens, and as you can see, we're going to start with the standing committee items, which include some updates about truck rerouting, school filtration, and the new vegetation barrier subcommittee. And then we're going to get a monitoring plan update from the Air District. Then we'll start to discuss the SERP, and specifically, we're going to talk about the progress that this committee's made with the SERP so far. The Air District's actually going to show you a few updates to the tools that we're going to be using to track our progress moving forward. And we're going to have a conversation about the very specific updates you want us to make, and specifically the things that will help this committee make sure that there's awareness and progress and that you understand the level of detail that really works for you with how the SERP is being tracked. And then if we have time, we're also going to discuss the lawn and garden incentives. Then we'll do the wrap up and public comment. So not as busy of an agenda as we've had in the past, but still pretty busy. And as I mentioned, this is the last full CSC meeting of the year, though there are a few subcommittees that are going to happen in the next few days. But we do have a community co-host this evening of the city of Fresno. We've got a couple people from the city that will be our co-hosts that we'll hand it over to in just a second. But before we do that, we want to make sure that everyone knows how to access this meeting virtually. And so we want to go over the Zoom controls and the etiquette. And I'm going to ask Kim to give us a really quick update on making sure that everyone knows how to update screen names and change any necessary requirements for our Zoom meeting.
Excuse me, Erica, before you start that, I just have one question that maybe you can find out while she's doing the instruction
Sure.
portion. What is the actual body count of members of the committee online right now? That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Well, Oh, thanks. We will pull that up. Thanks.
Okay, we all set?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to quickly remind you a couple of etiquette things for Zoom. If you see us changing your screen name, please keep it as it is. If you're a CSC member or a resident, we're going to put that in front of your name. Otherwise, we will put first name, last name, and then your organization behind it. If you are not speaking, please remember to stay on mute. If you have a question, please raise your blue Zoom hand, or we love to see all the activity in the chat. Please feel free to drop comments or questions in there at any time. If you have 2 accounts and you're joining by phone and video, you can link the 2 accounts by using your participant ID. And if you have any questions at any time, you can go ahead and ask anyone here from the ILG team.
Thank you, Kim. Kim and Hannah are going to be available throughout this meeting to help you out as needed. Just a couple more housekeeping notes. As a formality, this meeting is being recorded and streamed on Facebook. And while this meeting is open to the public, we do ask that members of the public reserve your comments to allow the CSC members some time to deliberate. We do promise to check for public input a few times during the meeting, but we do have a formal public comment period at the end of the meeting for those of you participating on either Zoom or Facebook from the public. We will also specify the public comment section of the agenda for those participating. So you'll see that slide that just showed up on your screen. We'll put that up on the line when it is time for public comment. So until then, we are going to ask mostly CSC members to participate. If you're just joining us, there is a translation option for our Spanish-speaking community. And so if you would, please show the Spanish translation slide just one more time, since we've had a few people join since Mari provided that overview. Thank you.
Hello, Erica.
Hi, Amelia.
Yes.
Hi. I'm so sorry. We were having some technical difficulties. I'm here. I see Mari is the interpreter, but if you would like for me to take over, just let me know and assign me, or whatever works is fine.
All right, let's get the Spanish translation figured out. Kim and Mari and Hannah, do you guys want to see if Reina should be the translator? I don't know if we can switch interpretation midstream or how that will work.
Let's see, I think I can add one.
We can add one, that'd be perfect.
Technically we can. Sometimes people refuse to work with us, but technically yes. Let's try it.
Okay, I just updated it. Let's see.
Oh, hey.
See if the Zoom technology works for us today. It'll be like a holiday miracle, right? First day of Hanukkah today.
Amelia, are you good? It looks like she's in the Spanish channel, so I think we should be all set.
Sí, sí, escucho.
Perfect. We've got one person.
I see Heather clapping. I don't know what it means. It means we're all good.
I think
we got Amelia in.
I think Amelia's in the
Think we did it?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you. I'm so glad that we were able to make that happen. And for the rest of you that were listening in, we do appreciate the flexibility while we work through some of the technical challenges that come along with a virtual meeting. But we do want to be committed to making sure that all of our participants can participate in this meeting fully, even if they don't speak English and have interpretation needs. So moving on to the chat etiquette, I wanted to flag a couple things for you. So for the past few meetings, our Zoom chat box has been really active, and we absolutely love that. But we did notice that when we print the chat transcript and we include it in your meeting summaries, it isn't always easy for you to figure out which answers go with which questions. So to remedy that, we're going to ask you to make 2 small changes to your chat conversations tonight. If you are a subject matter expert and you're answering a question or making a note of a comment, please make note of what that question or comment is so that we can reference those things when we read the chat back. And if you're a CSC member and you're asking a question about a presentation or you're volunteering for something, just make sure to specify what specifically that is so that we can make note of it when we're going back through and we're including that in the meeting summaries that we share with you. All right, so let's go to roll call very quickly. We, as you know, don't do full verbal roll call during these meetings anymore. Technology has caught up with us, but we do want to make sure that your names are actively changed so that we can track who you are. And that's important for the stipends that we do pay out every month to those of you that are participating in that program. So we will at this time go through and see if there's anybody on the line that needs help renaming themselves so that we can make sure that you get credit for your stipend participation. I'm going to hand it over to Kim to see if there's anybody on the line that needs help getting renamed before we move to our community co-hosts.
Yeah, so I just want to confirm the only person that we don't have labeled says iPhone Laura, and I'm wondering if that could be Laura Moreno, or if we could just get confirmation on that, and I can label.
Yes, Laura Moreno.
Great.
Hi, Laura. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, those of you in the stipend program, there are quite a few of you. Please do try and stay on this meeting for 75% of the meeting to get credit for that stipend. And there will be another payout of stipends this month for this meeting to wrap up the end of the year. And you should be receiving that sometime around the holiday, Christmas holiday date. So check your mailbox for that if you are on the line. All right. At this time, I want to make sure that we connect with our community co-host and our hosts at the Air District. So I'm going to pass it over to Ryan for the Air District welcome, and then he's going to pass it over to our community co-hosts who are with the City of Fresno. Greg, Scott, and Lupe are working together in a joint community co-host effort tonight. Ryan, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Erica. So great to see everybody. I know Thanksgiving was a few weeks ago, and but however, I just think it's always a great opportunity to reflect in how much we are very fortunate to be together and to be working on improving air quality in the Fresno area, and to have a great group of people that are all working towards the same goals is really fantastic and great. And excited for tonight's meeting. Always looking to get additional feedback and ways that we can make this process better for everybody involved. It's important work, and to make sure that it's understood, what we're working on, what we're working towards, and make sure that everybody's on the same page is important for everyone. And so I think we'll make more headway tonight on that process, and definitely want to thank our co-hosts tonight. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to them. So thank you.
All right. Hey, Ryan, it's Greg Barfield and committee. Want to introduce both Scott Mosier and Lupe Perez. Scott is our Director of Public Works and has been active since day one. And then Lupe Perez has been very active as our Economic Development Director. So I will defer to them and then come back at the end because I've been asked to give some updates at the city level. And so we'll start with Scott, who you will also hear from about truck rerouting under the standing updates later on. So Scott.
Good evening. It's great to see everyone, and glad to share a little bit with you about some things that are going on. Right now in December, with the weather cooled off as a city with Public Works, we go into a lot of our winter maintenance activities, but a lot of things are in design, and you'll see a lot of things coming out of the ground in the community after the new year in the spring. So wanted to share about a few things that here as a steering committee, we've talked about active transportation, investments, improving air quality. So I don't think we've had a chance to share that we have 4 protected bike lane corridors funded and now under design. And in 2021, we'll be building those. One is the Palm Avenue corridor. And this is, again, these are specific to our AB 617 area. Our Palm Avenue and Belmont corridors, really starting outside the boundary, but up at Dakota, all the way down to 8th Street to undertake a road diet of Palm. We've had some good community meetings on that, go to 1 lane each way, and then add protected bike lanes, which basically put a barrier, flexible post in between the traffic and the cyclist, or at times flipping the parking to be a buffer and protection for the cyclist. So Palm Avenue, we have Belmont Avenue from Palm over to Blackstone, And then as part of the transit-oriented development at Blackstone and McKinley, we'll be implementing quite a number of active transportation improvements late 2021 and into 22, adding those same types of protected bike lanes to the Van Ness Maroa corridor, starting at Belmont, and then at Belmont going north, or it's southbound, the Fulton and Washon corridors as well. So we have a lot of those things going. Many of you are involved in the Transformative Climate Community Program, TCC. So those are all in design and moving along. We're really excited about being able to, in years to come, next couple of years, reconstruct Mariposa Plaza at the Church, Martin Luther King, Jensen area to add curbs, gutters, bike lanes, sidewalks, trails, lighting to that community, make it more walkable and inviting. And also some neighborhood reconstruction. We'll be working in the spring in the West Fresno Elementary neighborhood, and also the Burroughs neighborhood. So some projects we're excited about. Also just wanted to share with the committee, there'd been a lot of discussion and concern about idling of trucks, and a need for some no idling signage. And I think we have a good partnership with the Air District. If the Air District can provide the signs, we'll make our sign crew available to do the installations and target some of those hot spots that were of concern. And I'm always available if anyone has follow-up questions. But I wanted to turn it over to our Economic Development Director, Lupe Perez.
Good evening and welcome, and thank you everybody for attending this evening. Our team has just been really busy dispersing grants to our small businesses. As you know, with a shelter in place in the pandemic, there's a lot of businesses that are just shutting down and can't open. We have, through council, we've allocated for small businesses about $5 million, a little bit over that, to small businesses, with a big emphasis in helping the small businesses in our underserved communities. So I'm proud to say that about half of that money has gone to small businesses in underserved communities. We are working on programs to help lift our small entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs, to be able to access funding that they can't access traditional funding. So we're looking at doing programs up in the upcoming year to be able to help them as well. Currently, right now, we don't have any more grant funds currently available to disperse. I know we're looking to see how else we can get money out to the businesses as they are continuing to suffer. But we do have some good loans that are out there that businesses can access. So if you know of a business that needs some help, some of the loans can be deferred for 6 months, so they don't have to come up with a payment, right after it's funded. But feel free to refer them over to my team, and we're happy to help them. There's also grants and other incentives available through the state that we can provide information about. And there's also, the state has just really is looking to create other incentives. So for businesses, small businesses that make under $1 million, there's incentives for hiring their employees that can possibly help them. So feel free to give us a call, give my team a call. You can also go online to our website to get additional information. We continue to work hard to keep these businesses open, and also we get a lot of calls of businesses wanting to come into town. So we're working with them as well to find sites, because as some businesses close, we want to be able to have other businesses here to open to offer jobs. So I will turn it back over to Greg.
Hey, Lupe, thank you. Both you and Scott have questions in the chat. Folks want to know about the businesses that have been supported in the AB 617 community. And then there was a question about active transportation projects in the same community. So for Scott. I've been asked to just, I'll give, as the Director of Transportation, I'll give a quick glimpse of what we're doing. We have our first 2 battery electric buses that will be coming in February. And then tomorrow we're at council for the additional 9 more. All of those will be assigned to Route 38, which is in our boundary area. That is the route that goes from downtown to West Fresno over to Calawa and then up Cedar. And we're very excited about that. That route also changes to 15-minute frequency between Calawa and West Fresno and downtown in January. So it'll be a complete 15-minute route beginning in January. And our emphasis is to put these our first battery electric buses on that route, probably around fall of 2021. Because we have to train all of our operators on the first 2 that arrive in February, and also our mechanics. Currently, we're both Scott's team and my team are also working on the regional transportation plan. So if you're not connected with that, please go to the COG website and put in suggestions or comments or send them directly to myself or Scott. Those will go public after the 15th of December. That's when we have to put our comments in. I want to thank Leadership Council for our meeting with residents the other day, along with Public Works and with my team. That was a very good conversation where we talked about lack of roads and transportation issues. And then finally, I've been asked to really speak for just a few minutes about the changes in city government. So on January 5th, we will have a brand new mayor. That's Tuesday, January 5th. And then a new city council person that comes on board, Tyler Maxwell, who will replace Paul Capriolio in the Fresno State Northeast region. Tyler has been working with Nelson Esparza for the last couple of years. And he worked previously in the police department as a crime investigator. And so we're excited to have him and his team come on board, as well as our new mayor, Jerry Dyer. As you heard yesterday, Paco Balderrama, I can now say this officially, even though I've known privately for a while, Paco will become our new police chief on January 11th. And so we're excited to have this young man, a very energetic young man, come and lead our force. He's only our 3rd outside police chief and our first Latino to lead the force. And then, of course, you may have heard some things about the new administration. So I will be leaving FACTS at some point. I'll keep FACTS until June, but I will be moving to the city manager's office as an assistant city manager. So you have an additional resource at a much higher level beginning in January with my moving to the city manager's office, where I will continue to oversee transportation and FAA and many other things. You also have Tommy Escueda, who is coming in. Many of you may remember him from his days at Public Utilities. Tommy's coming back as our city manager, and we're very excited to have him and his high energy. And that's an understatement if you know Tommy, with his energy. And then, of course, Francine Kane, who has been in the city attorney's office for many years, will also come over as assistant city manager, and Georgianne White, after a 4-year hiatus away from city government, is coming back as another assistant city manager. So we look forward to serving you all in those roles. And then the mayor staff is beginning to shape up. As you may have heard, Tantaya Rose is coming over as our communications director. And then Matthew Grundy, who formerly was the executive director of Habitat for Humanity, will become our deputy mayor. And so we're really, really excited about the enthusiasm that January 5th will bring to us. And so I want to kind of leave it at that due to time, because I see it's like 5:57 and we're a little bit over. So I will turn it back to Erica.
Thank you, Gregory, and the entire team from the City of Fresno. There are a few comments in the chat related to your presentation. Some of them are relevant to this, and I do know certainly that there is also you have our first standing update as well. So what I will actually request of you is that you, I'm not sure which of you is going to handle the standing update on the truck rerouting subcommittee, if you have an update on that. But I'll also ask you to answer the questions in the chat if you are able, that speak specifically to some of the comments that you made and the updates that you've given already. Thank you for that.
Okay, and Scott will handle the truck rerouting.
Perfect. Well, that's our first agenda item, so we're technically still on time. And again, we want to make sure that everyone has the time to answer and discuss the issues that are of importance to them. So this one is a big one for us. We're happy to have you as co-host, and I know truck rerouting is always a popular discussion item. So let us continue with Scott.
All right, good evening again. Our internal city team has been working with a great group of people volunteering their time through the truck rerouting subcommittee, and a smaller group from that subcommittee has further volunteered to spend some time helping the team. A lot of good input on the language for the request for proposals. The acronym for that is RFP, the RFP language. So we're really working hard to make sure that we as a team collectively get that right. Some things to share with the overall steering committee that we're trying to work through is, for example, how we address the health impacts or health component of that study, and what's the best way to handle that. There's a lot of consensus on that, and we're just trying to get the language right to move that forward. This is a well-funded study, and I think the steering committee and the subcommittee are going to be very pleased with the work. So really the next step is to meet with that working group. There's a meeting on Friday to go through in more depth. We hope to get some consensus, have some agreement on that, and then the overall RFP language that'll come back to the truck rerouting subcommittee as a whole. And we, as the city team, we look forward again that continued partnership at work and with the air district staff. Lots of good effort there. And then being able to get that RFP released and be able to start looking at those proposals here in the spring. So there is progress being made, but it's an important study, a complex one, and looking forward to moving that along. So I'm available, as are a number of other subcommittee members, should there be any questions.
Scott, hi.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm sorry, I just have a real quick question. Do we have anything that we need to read for the meeting on Friday? Is there any documents?
Lisa, great question. Not in advance of the Friday meeting, but we have some specific sections, specific topics that we can go through. So we're really going to be looking for a lot of feedback from folks like yourself who are serving in that capacity.
You know, I kind of like to see language before the meeting so I can like mull it over and think about it, you know, because I like to take a nap on language and look at it. So if there's any way I can get some of the language that you are pondering on Friday ahead of time, I would really appreciate it.
All right, we will make our best effort to get a working draft out as soon as we can. And okay. we may leave some placeholders and question marks.
Oh, I'm not going to tear through it like I did the last one. It's not a problem.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I see questions from Lilia and then Ivanka. Lilia.
Sí, buenas noches a todos. Gracias por estar aquí presentes. No, nada más es un agradecimiento. El día de
I
hoy,
wanted to thank everyone.
en mi casa,
hang on one
quiero
second,
agradecer
William.
a la
Let me.
de San Joaquín Valley Air Pollution. Estuvieron el carro de San Joaquín 3 veces mi área. Eso es muy bueno. Entonces quiere decir que sí están monitoreando el área, aunque sean los supervisores que están mirando. Es bueno.
I think we might have had a couple translation challenges there. William was starting to translate simultaneously. I want to make sure that our translators were able to capture everything that Lilia mentioned. Can we confirm that, please?
Yes, William here. I was about to do it, but then I got interrupted, so I lost my train of thought. If she can repeat it, I can do it simultaneously.
Or William, yeah, because when we're doing it here on live, it's not going to be simultaneous, but I was able to capture her comment.
Okay.
So Lilia's basic comment is that she is thankful to the Air District because she actually saw 3 vehicles with Air District logos in the area in her neighborhood. And so she appreciates that she's seen that there is actually involvement, or we're actually doing some enforcement in her community. So she thanks the district for doing that.
Excellent progress being made. That's always good to hear and to hear about. So thank you, Lilia, for making that note. Ivanka, you had a question. Was it a question for the city?
Yeah, I don't, either to Scott or Gregory. As we talked about truck reroute, it also brings up the question, I think Nyameen also posted in the chat regarding the MOU. It brings us back to needing that memorandum of understanding generally with the city between the Air District, and what will it individually look like for an MOU specific to the truck reroute as well.
So let me speak to that. In the chat, because we're not all fully on board or transitioned, it will be something that will come up after the transition of January 5th. And so I would expect sometime late January, early February, we'll figure that out. As you know, there's a lengthy list of things that are going on as a part of the transition. So, so just bear with us.
I see Nyameen's hand.
It's just a quick follow-up comment to these 2 points. I think that we totally understand that this transition will take some time, and we might not know the exact names right now, but that's why I'm posing the question right now, because I do know that definitely will be more than one person, more than one department. So I just wanted to put it in the radar so that we are all, expecting to receive those names once you know them in January. And I will just make another comment that I had mentioned in the past. I think that, in addition to the city staff who leads these various departments that might need to be involved, like, certainly transportation and public works and many others. I think that is extremely important that the staff of the council members who are part of the AB 617 area are engaged since the beginning of the discussions, not just to see the document once it's presented to them for a vote. So that will be my only request and recommendation. And as well, also, of course, making sure that steering committee members, just as we have been given the opportunity to be part of all the other subgroups, that this is another item that is open to the participation of whomever wants to be joining those meetings.
So I think City of Fresno, you're hearing from the CSC members, they're very excited about the possibility of having this MOU, and they've been obviously interested in that effort for a couple of months now. The transition presents new opportunities, but I think there's definitely interest in making sure that that momentum is maintained despite the transition, and that we identify key stakeholders within that process to make sure that they're fully aware of all the efforts being done. And I know that the city, there's a number of you that are on this call as co-hosts today, and you may have limited ability to speak for the city, but as much as you can and share additional insights from this committee with those as that transition continues. It sounds like that's what the committee would love to move forward from you.
Erica, let me just say to everyone that it is my responsibility to bring this forth to the new city manager and to our team. And I am fully committed to doing it. I've been with you all now 2 years, and I don't want to end our relationship. Normally we would pass this off to the transportation director, but I feel strong enough and comfortable enough I want to stay with you guys. So I'm asking to take this on myself.
I think we've heard a resounding yes, he's taken it on. It deserves a virtual round of applause for Gregory to keeping that alive despite all the changes that might be happening at the local level with the city. So thank you, Greg, for that. I really appreciate it. And you can see the virtual rounds of applause from other CSC members as well. Ryan, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I just saw a question about when the conversations. So over probably about the last month, we've reached out to the city. We've definitely expressed the interest of the steering committee to want to participate and looking to share with the city ideas and topics that could be part of an MOU. And so, we're definitely looking to work with the city on bringing this back to the steering committee to have those conversations. So when we have had those conversations, they did understand that if there was going to be a new administration, they definitely shared with us that the best idea would be to wait for that to happen to have those talks. So that's kind of why it's gotten delayed a bit. At the same time, understanding the importance of this to the steering committee and us as well. So thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Ryan. So I think we're hearing resounding commitment on behalf of the Air District and the city to continue the conversations with a little flexibility for timing as they go through the transition in the administration and leadership, but that they are committed to continuing and making sure that the CSC is informed about the progress and integrated into that progress and that process when the time is right. There's another question about this truck rerouting subcommittee, subcommittee. And I did want to clarify that committee on Friday is not a full subcommittee meeting. It's a smaller kind of ad hoc group that's just doing wordsmithing, but the next truck rerouting subcommittee will be public with Zoom information shared. Is that accurate, Air District team? I want to make sure I have that right, that I don't think it's this meeting on Friday is open to the full group. It's intended to be a small ad hoc committee. I'm seeing nods, right. So the next truck rerouting subcommittee will be publicized on the website and emailed out and will be open. But this meeting is a small ad hoc working group, not open to everyone, in order to keep the team small and the work very, very focused. But they will certainly report back. All right, I do believe we've just covered the truck rerouting subcommittee update. I don't see any more hands, and so I want to move us forward. We're still on track. And I want to make sure that we have time to talk about the school filtration and bus subcommittee. There hasn't been a formal meeting for the subcommittee, but I am going to ask Naomi and Ivanka for a quick update on an ad hoc meeting that they had on this topic before we turn it over to the Air District for their update.
Go ahead, Ivanka.
Sorry, you guys, I'm having some housework and that was a little loud. Regarding the bus, we really went over discussing just how we can move forward with Fresno Unified and making sure that they are more committed and that we hear that their main concern is infrastructure. So we do need to plan around trying to find solutions to work that into whether that means does the funding amount of the buses, if we decrease the amount of buses so that there's funding available for infrastructure, like we have to have that conversation with them because we want them to know that we hear what the concern is, but we still want to make sure that there's these buses that are getting into this district. Yeah.
I would only add that the only thing that we need to continue the discussion, not only with the school district, but also with all the residents and whomever wants to be part of this subgroup, is how to prioritize, right? Because at some point we're going to have to make tough decisions. So where would the charging stations would be? Are we going to be open to the idea of having the charging station? Like right now, their barn is located on the other side of the city. Some of us said that, well, we don't mind, right? As far as the buses are serving the schools within the AB 617 area. But I think that that's something that definitely, at least myself, I don't feel comfortable like making a decision for the entire committee. I think it's something that we need to bring back to all of you. And also, if we just have funding, let's say we decide to recommend funding for that charging station. then that means that we're going to have less funding for buses. How many buses? And if so, how do we determine which schools get the buses, right? So I think some of those decisions are going to be out of our control because they might be taken probably, or some recommendations being made by the staff. Who knows what are the routes and which buses can go a certain distance and so on. But at least we can help them make some recommendations based on whatever criteria we come up with. You know, maybe we can say, well, you know, we make a list of those schools that are more vulnerable because they are closer to the freeway, because they are closer to certain sources of pollution, like, you know, Malaga being next to Fowler, they already have their electric bus. So those are some of the things that I think will be coming next in our conversations with the school district. And I really encourage, especially residents, to be part of these discussions, so that we can have, you have a say in how we come up with this criteria to select the schools.
We also discussed one point that was brought up by Kimberly is the need for making sure Fresno Unified they're not in this alone. This has been done in Fowler, and asking that, what is it out of that Fowler process of their buses that can be implemented within this district? What are the similarities? So we're not just starting from scratch. And we can, if we have that communication with Fowler, what were their challenges that we need to avoid? So not just what worked for them, but what do we need to avoid as well? Yes, it's a lot bigger of a district, so it's going to be more complicated, and the area is definitely larger. But there's points in there that can be used so that we're not just starting from scratch with how is this going to play out.
And we also asked for like the data on asthma rates in the school district, so we'll know which schools to start with, especially the schools in the AB 617 area. So we'll know which schools that will be a priority, so we could present it back to the committee.
Great, thank you, three. I do see 3 hands, and I think we'll take Brian and then Lisa and then Greg before we see if there's any additional updates from the Air District, if that works.
Cool, thanks.
All right.
This is Brian from the Air Resources Board. I just wanted to mention that I've talked to our electric bus staff at CARB. So if community steering committee members or anybody from the Air District or both would like to get the CARB perspective when they've worked with utilities and some incentive programs to get some more details, please email me and we can set up a call.
Thanks, Brian. We'll make a note of that, and certainly the subcommittee I think will take you up on that based on the nod and the head nods I've seen so far. Lisa, you had a question.
Yeah, my big question is with the new federal administration coming in, and you know, Biden having some bucks available after the first of the year, because you know at that point he's actually going to want to solve some problems. Does anybody know if there's going to be any money given to the school systems to help upgrade their systems, their filtration systems? And if so, do you think that maybe this money could help the schools by providing the match to upgrade the systems? Does anybody know? Anybody got any federal contacts? That's my question.
Greg is raising his hand, and your hand was already raised. Greg, yeah, do you want to answer her question?
So in the today's report from our federal lobbyists, a lot of what's going on right now is just to keep the government afloat. As you may know, the continuing resolution of the government ends at midnight on Friday. And so right now the plan is just to figure out how to get through that, do a bridge stimulus. And then what we see is that the Biden administration, as they continue to roll out their new administration, will be coming up with other resources. So right now, Lisa, it hasn't gone down to that level. It's about trying to get through this vaccine and keeping us safe in COVID. The other thing I wanted to say is, as you all are talking to Fresno Unified, if you would loop me into those meetings, because we will have the first electric bus yard coming up Currently some of the folks, some of Fresno Unified and other school districts do fuel at our, their CNG. They do fuel during the day at our facility. And we are looking to make our facility available for charging during the day because we know that some of the Fresno Unified buses will do their morning run and then they'll do a field trip run and they may need to charge up before they do their afternoon pickup of the field trip kids and then their afternoon run. So we're interested in being an alternative site to them. And so we would love to be a part of that. And a lot of it comes down to the charger itself and the plug-in. That's the big difficulty right now.
That is an awesome addition to this conversation. Thank you, Gregory. And I see some nodding heads from some of those on the subcommittee. So excellent. All right. Any other comments about that committee? Before I had, or maybe even from the Air District staff, I was going to make sure that they had an opportunity to add to what Nyameen and Ivanka and Kimberly provided already. Anything else to add from the Air District on the bus and schools?
Yeah, good evening. So I did want to give a brief update. Let me first start by saying I'm pleased to provide a pretty good update with some information that we received from the Director of Transportation with Fresno Unified. We had a meeting with him this morning. And so within that, I want to go over an exciting revelation that we came up with regarding the charging. And that comes down to they are currently conducting a study for their existing charging that they have at their bus barn for another process. And they do believe that it's possible that it only will need some minor modifications to be able to service incoming electric buses. So that was really exciting to hear that they are in that process of continuing that investigation. Additionally, they're looking into routes that will serve the students within the boundaries of the community, as well as looking at the routes of busing those students that do come into the area from outside the community. They are looking right now at anticipating the availability to create some new routes that would utilize at least 2 new electric school buses that would travel primarily within the community. They're in contact with the bus manufacturer currently, and they're seeking information as they're investigating further how to deploy these buses. But I think the biggest key part here to address what came up in the subcommittee meeting the other day, and Nyameen and Ivanka touched on that, was that of the charging stations. And I'm equally excited to hear the update from Gregory on that as well. I'm happy and excited to pass that along to our contact with Fresno Unified and loop you into those conversations as well. So we're going to continue to meet with Fresno Unified, and I'm looking to follow up with them again next week to see what additional information that they can share with us and what they've learned from their electrical needs studies so far. And we're excited to move forward with them on processing applications, and they've expressed their excitement with adding zero emission buses to their fleet. So it was a great conversation, and I'm happy to share that update with you.
Great, lots of progress on that subcommittee and on that effort, so great job. Any additional questions before we move on to the new vegetative barrier subcommittee update?
Erica,
I do see you. Oh, go ahead, Janine.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I do have a real brief update on the school air filtration. I can say that in real quick before we move to vegetative barriers. We've had several conversations with Fresno Unified on this process, and they have been actively working at assessing their systems at the various schools and meeting with multiple manufacturers to look at the different types of devices that are available and what's going to meet the site location's needs, as well as work best with their existing systems. They are at a bit of a challenge right now, as they appear to be currently using the best available MERV rating for their HVAC system. So they are looking at other types of devices that can be added to their existing systems to help improve that filtration level. Additionally, they are looking at what devices can also help with the pathogen reduction as they are moving towards reopening of schools in the time of COVID. So they're really doing a lot of analysis to make sure that they are selecting something that will be best on both sides of that equation. I did want to also mention, Lisa had asked about additional funding. This is a little bit in that direction. There's Assembly Bill 841, which is been approved and is in process right now, that will be providing additional funds to help schools reopen safely. A portion of that can be looked at for repairs and upgrades to existing HVAC systems so that the airflow is proper and safe for the children's return into the classrooms. So Fresno Unified is following that Assembly Bill very closely and looking to leverage that money with our program to get the best available technologies into the classrooms. As far as our side, we are wrapping up our final edits to our program guidelines and applications, so we should see those rolling out hopefully very soon.
Hi, it's
Wonderful.
Lisa. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a quick question real quick.
Sure, go ahead, Lisa.
On the AB 841, where is it along the process? And will you let us know at what point in time we should write a letter of support, or the committee members can call people to make sure it happens? Because it sounds like a very good bill that could dovetail in with our funding.
Yes, absolutely. So it's my understanding that the way the bill is written, it will be the monies will be handled through the utility company. So it'll be grants that kind of come through here in Fresno, PG&E. And it looks, as far as what I've seen in the bill, that we should see like those application processes starting sometime around March of 2021. It did have some very tight timeframes, and we can definitely try to track that as well and provide updates as possible.
Thank you, Janine. And there are a couple questions in the chat, and if you do have some time, I'd love for you to answer those, specifically related to some funding for portables, and it looks like there's some MERV filter questions as well.
Sure thing.
Thank you, thank you. I do want to keep us moving because I want to stay on track and make sure you guys get out of here by 7:30 as scheduled. Our next item is actually related to vegetative barriers, and it's the new subcommittee that was established and met in the last week. I'm going to hand it over to Jamie to talk about vegetative barriers.
Sure, thanks. And I'm happy to have anyone who was on that meeting jump in. And I can't remember if Naimeen's announced it to this group. I don't remember, but Naimeen, do you want to announce your news about your two Climate AmeriCorps?
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't announce it last month because it was kind of embargo, but now it's official. So on behalf of this committee, I applied for 2 full-time AmeriCorps climate change fellows, and they will be working on letting us implement and advance our 2 strategies in the SERP that are related to urban greening and vegetative barriers. So basically, what I did was that the scope of work for these fellows will be to coordinate the work among ourselves and all the other agencies, including the schools or the city or other programs that are already doing some projects that had to do with tree planting and other efforts. I know that the city and Tree Fresno also received or are going to be working with some of these fellows. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that that would allow us to have more human resources to advance these 2 strategies. And when we met last week, or when did we meet? Last week? Yes, last week. The goal was to really have a very fast process so that we don't miss the tree planting season in the spring. And Lisa is going to help us with a template of a planning chart that she has, so that we can make sure that by late spring we have our first tree planting event.
And so we discussed most of what Naimeen just mentioned at the subcommittee meeting. So right now, over the next 3 or 4 weeks over the holidays, we're in an information gathering mode that includes reaching out to Caltrans, the City of Fresno, the County of Fresno, Tree Fresno, Fresno State, the EOC, and others, just to find out who's doing what's happening, and maybe putting it in a kind of concise little list for everybody. You may recall that Tree Fresno did present to this group about one of the programs that they have up and running through a SEP. We want to remind folks of that. So the committee will be looking at that and see if it is appropriate to do something similar with these vegetative barriers. And then we want to look as a subcommittee and as an entire committee of utilizing the staff that Naimeen just mentioned to really get some strategy and a plan in place to meet the planting season, as Naimeen mentioned. So we're off and running, and Naimeen has given us 2 little Christmas presents. So I appreciate it. That's all we have. If anyone else who's at the meeting wants to jump in, go right ahead.
I don't see anyone unmuting, but I will also ask if anyone has any questions.
This is Ed. I just want to thank Naimeen for your efforts outside of to provide some extra help for this. It's just outstanding. Thank you.
Great. 2 additional fellows. Those human resources are critical. Okay, I don't see any more questions on this agenda item. I will ask my friends on the Spanish line, is there anyone have any questions on the Spanish line before we move to the air monitoring update? All right, seeing none, I think we can move it to Chai to give us the air monitoring update.
Hey, thanks, Erica, and good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Yeah, we're still continuing to put a lot of work to maintain the established network and perform the mobile van monitoring, implementing the new sites, and implementing new tools to enhance access to the air monitoring data. So out of the 10 sites, we have only 2 left. One is at Madison Elementary, and we're still working with Central Unified to install the electrical infrastructure for that. So hopefully we can get that out pretty soon here. And then we're also still working with Fresno Unified on putting equipment at Edison High School. In addition to that, we are working on making air monitoring van a little bit easier to get the van data by putting it into an interactive map on the web page, and we're getting pretty close to that. So hopefully in a week or 2 we can get something like that out onto the web page that you can access, where you can see it on the map of all the places where we've gone to, and then click on that and you can see all the air monitoring data for that. As requested by the committee, we're also working on integrating our community air monitoring with our regulatory monitors into RAN. And that's going to be, has been a pretty huge undertaking, and we're still continuing to work on that. So it'll take a little bit longer, but I think hopefully in a couple months we'll get that up and running. And also, as most of you may know, we have the upcoming air monitoring subcommittee meeting next Tuesday, December 15th, from 4 to 5. So as requested, we're going to go over, provide a summary of all the air monitoring efforts that has been completed, what's done, what's left, provide some easy to understand overview of all the air monitoring data that we've collected, and show that in charts and graphs to make it a little bit easier to digest. Talk about what we've learned and what the plan for moving forward, and getting feedback from the committee also as well. So that's the plan for next for the air monitoring subcommittee next week. I just wanted to give a little bit of opportunity here to see if there's anything else that you may want to discuss or want us to prepare for that meeting, you can just let me know and we can prep up for that as well.
So as Chai mentioned, there is a subcommittee meeting next week, and he wants to know from this committee if there's anything beyond what he has listed that he is planning to prepare that you would like them to have ready for you to make that discussion as productive as possible. Any additions for Chai, either unmute yourselves, raise your blue hands, or drop it into the chat. I see Naomi's hand.
Yes. Hi, Chai. I think we would like to see more details of the toxic air contaminants that have been, measured. Because I went to the website and all that I see is the dates when the grab samples were taken, but nothing. And I know in the past some reports were made as of no toxics being found above the threshold levels. But I think that now that you're going to take the time to explain to us complex things in a simple way, it would be good to get to name the names of those toxics that you are sampling for and what the levels have been, and then show us this is a threshold according to OIHA, and as you can see, there's no it's not above that limit. So that would be very important to include, please.
Definitely, yeah, we'll go ahead and include that in there. I know there's just so much information, and there's a lot of this in the quarterly reports, but again, there's just a lot of information. So we'll try to distill all of that and make it a little bit easier to understand and present that to you all.
Excellent. Reminder, any additions for Chai for the air monitoring subcommittee meeting next week? I do see Lisa's hand. Lisa.
Yeah, Chai, to piggyback on that request, I would actually like to see all the raw data, the data that isn't filtered. You know how when you get your data and you have your first run report of basically everything? I mean, I would like to see that in an Excel spreadsheet sent to me if that's at all possible. You don't need to print it because I know it's probably going to be big, but you can email it to me and I would really appreciate that. Is that at all possible? Because I don't want it synthesized. I just want to know what it is.
Sure. Now, as far as the raw data, are you looking to see like all the raw data from the van to the our stationary monitoring sites that we establish on that? It can get pretty big. So
I would say throw all the mud at me and let me see if let's see how much of it sticks to me.
All right, sounds good.
I greatly appreciate it. And when do you think I could get that from you?
Hopefully before the end of the week, because we have to get all those and download them up and put them to Excel files, and hopefully they don't get too big.
Okay, that's fabulous. As long as it's before that wedding I got to do over the weekend. It's a Zoom wedding. Anyway, but that would be wonderful. Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then just one quick housekeeping note, Naomi, your audio is just a little gravelly. It might be because of your microphone. So if there's anything super specific, we want to make sure we capture the notes. If you can reinforce it in the chat, we'd appreciate that. And I do see a number of additional questions, Chai, for you, not specific to the subcommittee meeting itself, but there's a couple questions in the chat about where PM 2.5 monitors can be placed and other specific questions. Would you mind answering those? And then as well as some specific data requests? Wonderful.
Sure.
And then as always, the chat is always active and we do maintain it and track it. So please do continue to put your notes in the chat. And I want to thank everybody for putting your tags in there as well. I really appreciate that because it will make it easier when you go back through your meeting summary. All right, last chance for Chai to provide and him with any additional feedback for next week's subcommittee meeting. Anything else you think that would be useful for you as committee participants to see and have the Air District prepare in advance?
Yeah,
I have got another one. It looks like I've got a Lisa and a Naomi. Quick comments from both of you. Lisa, since you're unmuted, you first, and then Naomi.
Okay, real quick. Is Greg still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Greg, you need to get the PM 2.5 numbers along the 99 at Roding because you guys are redoing that hotel for the homeless. and may be coming in violation of CEQA under environmental justice. Just a heads up. That's all I wanted to bring up.
So I know that the hotel is actually on Olive and Parkway.
It's directly across from the 617 boundary. And if they have numbers regarding PM 2.5, I think it would be beneficial for the city to look at them, because one of the things is you cannot put it like a housing development like that, or even temporary housing with any high numbers of PM 2.5 or 10, because that you're going to run into CEQA issues. Just giving you a friendly heads up. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Naomi, close us out on this item.
Yes, can you hear me now? Is that better?
A little better. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to speak loud. So Chai, would it be too problematic for you to compare that data, especially for PM 2.5 that has been collected in the different stationary monitors like the Roosevelt and the other monitors, to the regulatory monitors, so that we can see if there's any spots where there's a significant difference?
Yes, definitely. And in fact, in our quarterly report, we do compare it to the regulatory monitors as well. But yeah, we'll definitely put all those together. That way you can kind of see the trend of it, and how far off it is, or how consistent it is with the regulatory monitors.
Excellent. Thank you, Chai. All right. Well, if you were paying attention to our agenda, you'll know that we are about half an hour over our allotted time for this item. But as you guys know, what we do typically is we let you discuss the items that are of importance to you and the timeframes that matter to you, and we adjust accordingly. So we're doing that again. Just a quick heads up, though, that we are going to take the SERP tracker agenda item next and spend as much time as we need to on that. And if we go a little over on that, we may delay the lawn and garden incentive measure conversation. We're going to try and fit everything in, but if we don't, that's what we will move to another agenda item. So without further ado, I do want to move us to the SERP tracker discussion. And just to preface this conversation, a big part of the 617 process is figuring out how best to make progress and report back on that progress. And this program is so important, but it's also kind of complex. And your SERP is really robust, it's really long, and I think have heard and you've communicated to both the Air District and others that, what's the best way to keep track of what you're doing and how you're doing. And so the Air District's going to share some of the updates they have on the SERP tracker, a couple interesting things, and then we're going to have an honest and very specific conversation about the kinds of adjustments that the Air District can make to the tracker for 2021 to make it sure that it works for you, because there are different learning styles. One thing we're hearing is that some of the CSC members want more data, more information as much as humanly possible, and others want less, higher level, less detail, just give me the nuts and bolts, right? So no specifics. So we're balancing things, right? And so this SERP tracker should reflect all of the priorities of the CSC and how do we make that work? So we're gonna have a conversation about that. The Air District wants to hear from you so that as we lead into 2021, they're delivering you a report that works for all those variations and everything in between. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to talk through this tracker.
Hi, everyone. We've basically created two documents. One is less of a tracker and more of just a snapshot of the SERP, something really simple that folks can get their hands around. And we've actually posted it on the website. Our Spanish speakers actually got it in their packets. It is in English and Spanish, but how you get there is if you go to the Fresno page and you click on Steering Committee Documents, they're the SERP at a glance documents. And I'm just gonna pull up the English one just to walk you through it. Oh, I gotta share my screen, thank you. Hold on. All right, so if you're at, I'm going to go back. If you're at the South Central Fresno AB 617 page and you click on Steering Committee Documents, you're on the right side. At the very top is what we're calling the SERP at a glance. I'm going to open the English one. This is just a very simplified, very simplified overview of the SERP strategies that are in there. So we've got a whole variety of things that are in here with regard to the strategies. You all can look in here, see what's going on, see what all the different strategies are. Some of them have kind of been lumped together. So there's not a specific bubble for necessarily each strategy, but pretty close. So we've also tried to use some really basic language so that it's a little bit easier for folks to understand. We are happy to give you hard copies of these. You can email the link out if you want, but there was a request for there to be an easy tool where the steering committee members could actually share with others what they've been working on and what the goals are and what the actual measures are. So that's what this document is. Again, a super simple version of the SERP. When we get to, I'm going to go to a more complex version, but I'm happy to take comments on any of these, any ideas you might have. Again, it's a balancing act between keeping it simple and keeping it not simple. I see Naomi's hand raised right now.
So this is the SERP at a glance. It doesn't try to give a sense of progress. It's just these are the SERP strategies. Okay.
Correct.
And then you have another document that is really like a thermometer.
And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. How do you want that? What do you want out of a progress document? So this is a basic what's in the SERP. Maybe when things, maybe things go from the color they are now to yellow to gray, I don't know, but we want to be able to communicate that in a very simple way in this version. We also have, I'm going to close this. If you go to what was sent out with your with the agenda, the link on the agenda, and again, our Spanish speakers received this in the mail. We have the tracker, which you all have seen before, but we know that it's missing that key element of an easy way to see progress, an easy way to see where we are. And we have not added that in here because we wanted to kind of kick it around with you all a little bit. So this has more detail. This is a more technical. Some of the language is more kind of inside baseball language, but it does have some great things in that you can link to certain documents. So like, for example, there's several, just on the ag burning, there's several different documents that you can link to. You can link to the PowerPoint presentation that you all saw 6 months ago or so. You can also link to the plan, the proposed project plan that had to go to CARB for approval. And within the project plan, there's more information than probably everyone wants to go through, unless that's your favorite thing and you really want to dig deep. So our question for you tonight, and Erica's going to kind of walk through kind of comments or additional questions if you have. What can we add to this where you can easily see progress, but at the same time, this is already a 24-page document. So that balancing act of, do you want each of these strategies to then have their own, bigger document with it? Do you want a column here that maybe says, how far are we along in the process, that we're at whatever it might be. So I know there's been some discussion about having a series of timelines, that we're going to do X at some, by March, and we're going to do Y by May. We are happy to do that, but setting up those timelines and that structure, then the question is, for your 50 some odd strategies, how do you want to carve out the time for us to establish timelines for your 50 something strategies? So as you can see, it's this balancing act between making sure that we're communicating enough information to you so that you fully understand what's going on and where we are with each of these programs, versus giving you so much information that you now have hundreds of pages to read. And I know folks feel strongly on either side, so we thought we would discuss that a little bit tonight. And with that, I will turn it back over, Erica, for questions, comments, suggestions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. And I do see a couple hands. I want to acknowledge that I see those. And I just want to recap for those of you that are seeing multiple documents. So the first thing Jamie showed was in response to a request for the SERP at a glance. What is in the SERP? So many people don't know what we've been doing for the last 18 months. What is it? How are we doing it? What is 617? This is in response to that request and that question that you might get. It is a document that can be shared publicly. It speaks to the high-level elements of the SERP. It does not speak to the progress made on the SERP. It just talks about what's in it, what's it for, what are you doing, what are you trying to accomplish, and how do you want to accomplish that, with some tactical elements related to each of the subject areas listed there. It's colorful, it's high level, it's shareable, and it's more maybe for an external facing audience, but it could also be used for your guidance, for your reference, in case you don't want to go to the larger document, which is that very significant tracker, right, that we just saw. So there's two questions to be had. One is, how do you like the bubble SERP, the tracker at a glance, for general purposes? And then the other one is, what do you need to see in the document for the CSC? What do you all want as it relates to measuring progress, measuring whether you're on track or not, and seeing where there might be hiccups or not? So that's the question that's being posed. Jamie is sharing her screen and showing you the very long tracker document as it lives right now. And then before I take the question from Lisa and then Kevin, one comment that we will make is, and I say this without outing anybody, we get a lot of comments in the private chat and anonymous commentary about, this is too much information. This is really confusing. I don't understand this. Can you talk a little bit more about what this means? So we've got a range of people on the CSC that are very versed in this, and others that want the high level. So what's the perfect kind of neutral balance for everyone? What will accomplish everyone's needs? It's not an easy answer, and that is an important discussion to have. Yeah.
Eric, I'm gonna pause it for just a moment. We have a message from Estella that they're listening to two audios. So let's maybe take a moment to figure out what's happening on interpretation channels.
Perfect. Yes, let's take that break. And I do want to flag Lisa and Kevin that I still see you. Lisa, Kevin, and Ivanka,
Sí, no
you're
estamos
up next in
escuchando,
just a second.
no estamos escuchando nada más el español, también estamos escuchando el inglés y no se puede entender los dos al mismo tiempo.
We are not only listening. We are not only listening to the audio in Spanish, but both. So we're having trouble understanding both.
Well,
it might have been because of our split when we did it at the beginning.
But no, because that just happened right now. So I think that there was a change in interpreters, and I don't know if you hear the voice of this male, whomever just spoke.
Yes, William, we could hear his voice. Yes.
But if we had I did select English, so we shouldn't have heard him. I think that.
So
I don't know if William was in the English. William has been in this channel the whole time. I think there were two others that were in the Spanish channel.
Hello, may I interrupt? William here. I only interpret whenever somebody comments in Spanish, so I haven't been speaking at all. Only when someone spoke in Spanish, that's when I interpreted to English. So maybe on the phone, they're having two audios at the same time.
No, because Estela is not on the phone. She's in her computer, right? Estela, ¿tú estás en la computadora?
Sí, nomás en la computadora.
She's not in the phone. She's in the computer.
Let me check in with our other interpreters if we can, and see if they have any idea what that issue might be. Jamie, do you mind not unsharing your screen temporarily? Can you unshare just for a second, Jamie?
Yes.
One
Thank you.
solution could possibly be to end interpretation and reestablish it, and that may be the solution to that audio issue.
So we have, originally we had Emilia assigned, right? So we have Reina and William now.
Yeah, I'm here as a participant.
Okay.
So should I keep Amelia in the English to Spanish, or and one will be here?
Well, Emilia is a simultaneous translator in the Spanish channel, right? And William stays in English channel to do consecutive translation.
Correct.
Correct. And Draina's just being here a fly on the wall. But yeah, I think if we want to solve Stella's issue, if we just end interpretation and reestablish it, that may be the solution.
Thank you.
Ya no se escucha las voces de los demás. Ya nomás se escucha la de usted.
Ok, Estela, ahorita vamos a empezar una vez más la interpretación. Va a tener que ingresar una vez más en el icono del mundo y ahorita vamos a comenzar una vez más. ¿Ok, Estela?
Está bien, gracias.
Excellent. So I'll wait. Kim, Kim, I think you're a host. Let me know when that has been completed. And thanks everyone else for your patience while we make sure that our Spanish speakers aren't hearing us 3 or 4 times.
Okay, it should be.
Yes, it says it's on.
We will look for some kind of thumbs up.
Sí, sí. Sí.
Thanks, Estela.
No.
Gracias.
A usted.
I'm seeing Mari's got a thumbs up there.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Is that better? Are we hearing double?
So we are good.
We are good. It looks like we figured that out. Thank you everyone for your flexibility, your patience, and for the troubleshooting. Okay, at this time we'll take hands from, thanks Estela for the thumbs up, gracias. Lisa, you had a comment around the tracker.
Yeah, you guys really need to pay me to do your job. I'm really kind of tired of this. I've been telling you guys for almost 2 years now that this has to change. And this is some of the stuff I used to do for a living. I used to take big information like this and distill it down where community members and staff could understand it in a very simple way that any person off the street could get it. On your first handout, your alternative at a glance, you are missing just a very simple chart that has the major bullet points like schools outreach of when is the start of the project, when is the end of the project through the years, and just make it very linear so people know when certain projects are going to get started, not like a single project, like when does this start to get implemented and when is it going to finish. You also need a thermometer of some sort of the allocation of this entire project system allocated by fiscal year. And then you can denote the different projects that start within that fiscal year or that calendar year, whichever is easiest. So people can look at it and say, oh, if this chart over here starts, this is when the money comes. Okay, I see it sinking. I do like the bubbles. I think they're very easy to read. I think they're very simple, but I think you're missing those 2 elements because that's the thing that you can hand to anybody and they can figure out the 3 basic things. When's the start and stop date? Where's the money? And what are your basic elements in it? Now, your bigger chart, your bigger handout, which I never read, by the way, because it's just so confusing, even for a retired professional like myself. And I keep telling you guys, you need Gantt charts. I would like to see one massive Gantt chart with every single project listed, just the title of the project and who is the project manager responsible for it, when the start and end date is, and then just put either the months and years out there. That way people can look at it, and then you can do a hyperlink to each one of those line items. And then you can get more into the minutia of, we're in the gathering information stage. We're in the implementation stage. No, we're in the programming part of this. You know, what are the basic 6 steps of planning are each of these projects in? And you can also hyperlink the additional pages and documents onto a Gantt chart. So if a person wants additional information, or you want to put additional information out there or explanations, you can hyperlink it. It really is that simple, guys. I've been telling you for 2 years you need Gantt charts, and you're finally getting around to it. And all I have to say is, really, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I see Kevin's hand, and I'm seeing that Jamie, in response to Lisa's comment, I see that Jamie's taken copious notes on that, and I think those are duly noted. Kevin, you're up.
Hi, good evening. So on the initial handout, the chart, I think it's a pretty good effort to actually describe the SERP as is. It's simple, it's pretty straightforward. I'd hunt through it for opportunities to improve the language a little bit, but that's just more of a matter of opinion than anything else. On the larger document, this document has made me crazy since day one. I have 3 things: timeline, brevity, and investment. So there's no timelines. So I have no idea when anything starts or ends, as Lisa pointed out. I think that's pretty obvious. And then brevity, come on now. I mean, if I had time, I'd sure take it on, but I know that I could write this in with a lot fewer words. There's a lot of repetition in each one of these boxes. I had some examples when it's up, but I think you know this, where it repetitively says the district does, the district does, the district does, in the same box. There's 4 sentences, each one starts with the district does. So, you know, that redundancy, and I tell people who I'm helping learn to write grants, redundancy will get you killed every time. So, you know, that's a pretty easy thing to strip out. I would change those big descriptions to bullets as well. I think you've gone way overboard in that language there, and I'm not sure why. It kind of looks like your SIPs. And sometimes I think you're writing, I mean, is there like a word count you have to hit or something? Just, I'm sorry, that wasn't meant to be rude, more humorous, but it just seems like that. And so let's fix this. And then money, you know, how much money are you investing in each one of those rows? So you've got a whole lot of very detailed information under each one. Wood burning, for example, you know, you've got real nice sets of rows with columns that are headed appropriately, but there's still no timelines there. When did the project start? When did it end? What was the budget for the program? And how is it, what's it do in relation to the others within that same category? So the emission reductions you hope to gain from that. And that's one thing you have to do with your SIPs anyway, which is be able to describe the amount of emission reductions you expect to get with a rule. So in this case, it would be great. I think the community would love to see that. Well, again, not written out, simply, you know, decrease PM 2.5 this amount, decrease NOx this amount, and, you know, nothing more detailed than that. So once you do that, I mean, I think you've got your initial layout. It just needs an editor to go through there and do that kind of work. That's my thoughts. Otherwise, you know, it's a good first effort, but it's just kind of been lingering there ever since it was published. And it just feels like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like nobody's done anything with it since then either. So this should be a living document, should be looked at regularly and edited on and updated regularly. So, and that's another thing with the timeline. Even with the timeline, there's no place to add progress. So we have with no timeline, we can't even see any progress let alone is the project started, or the idea that you're doing a campaign or something like that. Were you committed to meeting with community, for instance? Well, did those meetings happen? When did they happen? How many have happened? So that kind of information for each one of those. I know it's a long document, but if we're going to increase the size, let's do it horizontally and not vertically. So I'd rather see more rows, more columns, and less rows, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if we edit on the language, we can even shrink the columns a bit. Just a thought. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Kevin. If I can paraphrase your comment, you want to shrink the word verbiage. Like there's a lot of content in there at the moment. You think you can do actually less in the content department, do some copy editing there, but add more detail around the timelines, the budget,
more details.
And how you're doing on implementation.
There are no detail. There is no timeline. So you can't add to anything that's not there. You can add that thing, but
add
it's not there.
horizontally. Add maybe columns horizontally that speak to those, and then maybe even a progress meter that speaks to kind of where in the implementation cycle we are. So there could be some ways to visualize that.
If I have a grant with the district, this is if I'm going to do monthly or quarterly reporting. I mean, this is a standard practice in the industry. If I have funding or contract from an agency, I mean, you guys already drive me crazy with that stuff. Not you personally, but the agencies, and that's fine. But I mean, at least adhere to the same rules that you require from the rest of us when we're working with you. So it works in the end. I do it because I believe and I think it's the right way to do things. And so you need to kind of do the same thing as well. Thanks.
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. I do see Ivanka's hand and Ryan's hand. I want to give Ryan a chance to respond since he might be responding to something that Kevin said. If it's relevant, Ryan, do you want to pop in real quick, or did you want to wait until after?
You're on mute, brother.
Yeah, I'll wait. Look to maybe address everybody's comments after.
At the end, perfect. Lisa, was your comment for Kevin specifically? Because I do see Ivanka, and I want to make sure I get to her as well. You're on mute, Lisa.
I'm sorry. When you do a Gantt chart, you can also do a hyperlink. And one of the hyperlinks at the end could actually be for an information sheet where you could take all this big verbiage that you guys are using that really needs to be edited down, and the redundancy could really be really succinct into readable paragraphs, understandable stuff that people can, tap on, link to. Oh, look, there's an information sheet, gives you the skinny about what is really going on in the project. You guys can update it and be done with it. Because when you get a page and you add more columns to it, it's just going to be more of a mess than it already is. I've been through this. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And also too, on a Gantt chart, you can also show percentage of project completion. And that is what you need. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, Ivanka, thank you for being so patient.
Gantt charts are nice, but not everybody understands them. I've had to explain them to many interns over the years. So I agree with you that that's a really nice tool, but a lot of people, I mean, it's just not, my experience is it's not ready for the average person in the public who hasn't experienced them before, but I guess you could train
the at the glance is for the average person. This is for project management, in which basically we're helping move this whole entire project along. So there's actually two different documents. You're talking about a very easily read document that you could hand people that explains the project process.
There's other people who have not spoken.
Agree, and we are going to, I think we are taking content comments. We will, I think, work with the Air District to figure out what is the perfect balance of all the respective comments. Let's hear from Ivanka, and then we'll weigh in and see where we understand what is actually needed and what hits both residents and CSC members at all levels of sophistication in these topics. Ivanka, what's your question or
thank
comment?
you. I agree with what Lisa and Kevin had said, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. But I wanted to see the majority of this time that we were spending on the progress tracker to actually uplift from the residents what are the next measures that need to be worked on. Yes, the editing of the tracker is correct, but I would like to hear from the residents of what are the measures that are next that have not been worked on with the committee yet out of that tracker that they want to see worked on next, besides just constantly, yes, we have to keep giving updates on the measures that we've started, but there's a few in there that the residents want to prioritize moving into January. So if we could move to that, that would be great.
Thanks for that comment. Let me go to Ryan really briefly, and then we'll pop back to your request, Ivanka.
I'll defer again. Yeah, I definitely want to hear the feedback from the residents on the measures that they're looking to move forward and prioritize. Definitely.
What might be helpful for that discussion is to have Jamie share her screen again. She is unfortunately not at her desk, I don't think. But I do think that, you know, in order for the residents to give meaningful insights, they might need to see it, unfortunately. But I will give residents that are on the line the opportunity to weigh in now and see if there are specific areas that you think would be really helpful for us to prioritize the conversations in 2021 around some of the SERP implementation efforts.
Erica,
hi,
I'm sorry. Can I make a comment really quick? It
hey,
looks
Kimberly,
like,
go ahead.
yeah, it looks like that this conversation might need to be dedicated to a whole meeting because there are a lot of questions about the SERP. You know, residents want to uplift things on the SERP. So it looks like that this needs to be like a whole meeting just dedicated to the SERP, the tracker, and being able to address everyone's questions in a timely manner, because it feels like we're being rushed. It's like we have to make a decision on the spot. And it's like, you know, a lot of us haven't had time to review the whole tracker. So it looks like there needs to be a meeting just dedicated to reviewing the tracker, reviewing the SERP measures that did not make it, since we were promised that this was a working document. And talk about how we can move money around to be able to implement certain measures that are important to this committee and important to these residents. So to me, it makes sense to have a whole meeting dedicated to that.
Yeah, I hear you, and I appreciate that comment. It looks like Jamie is back. I will tell you that initially our thought was that we would outline kind of the format for the SERP tracker so that it's easier to even have that conversation around what's important, what's next, how are we doing. I don't know that all of our participants on the CSC understand the status report on everything, so it's hard to know where we prioritize next if we don't know how we're doing so far. So I do hear and respect that, Kimberly. I will ask Jamie and Ryan.
To the comment of saying that we need to have a whole meeting dedicated so
all
this can be because we're going to go back and forth in this little time frame that we have right now, and it's going to be questions. So it's going to be a lot of back and forth, and myself, I feel that we're going to end this meeting still having questions that are not answered.
And I'll defer to Ryan and Jamie specifically about this, but I do think that we are always taking new agenda items for the next meeting, and it might make sense to have that be a focus of the next meeting, with the understanding that process and design of the SERP tracker, we can probably wrap that conversation tonight in terms of what elements you want to include. And then in terms of content and prioritization of the strategies that are discussed, that could be a whole separate topic for a future meeting. I'll turn it over to Jamie and Ryan for that specific answer and to confirm that.
Erica, real quick, I request that we have a special meeting next month, by the 15th of next month, just to deal with the SERP tracker review, just to deal with this one issue, because, you know, I'm really tired of coming into these meetings and having to deal with this and going over the same thing over and over and over. You know, let's either teach the dog or rehome the dog, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate your comment. I'm going to let Jamie and Ryan respond to these comments.
Yeah, no, thanks for everybody for the comments that they provided. And no, we definitely hear what you're saying, Kimberly. The way that this agenda item was talked about, it was definitely just more focused on, what changes can we make to the SERP to make it easier for all the members to use as a tool to understand where individual measures are at. And I think we got a lot of great feedback. I know that Erica will probably go back over all that with everybody. I think we've heard maybe some differing opinions on how it can be presented. And so if we can maybe have a little bit more discussion on what the group as a whole desires, because we need to design this with the whole group in mind to the maximum extent possible. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where we're at. We definitely to follow up what Erica was saying, looking at maybe next meeting just really focus on the prioritization of measures that are not currently at the highest level. We like to think we're actively working on everything, but having a more focused approach to move things forward more quickly, I think is important. So providing people a month or between this meeting and our next one to really focus on what ones do you want us to hear more about and focus on more would be good.
Well, and to Ryan's point, and I do see Ivanka's hand, one of the things I'm hearing, if I'm balancing the private chat mixed with the other comments, I do think that from a philosophically, we need to think about the tracker in two different ways. In one way, it's what is the format of the document? How do we use it moving forward to really measure progress, to understand all the elements, and to really make it an actionable work plan for this committee? Second from that is that I don't think today, from what I'm seeing and hearing, is that not everyone on the call today has had a chance to review that tracker. Maybe they don't look at it frequently and they're not as well versed on it right now. They'd like to be in the future and maybe make it a little more user-friendly and easier to understand so that we can have those really strong and deep conversations about the usefulness of it, the prioritization of each measure, and where we need to focus. So there's two different issues. One is a design, formatting, visualization issue. The other one is how do we make sure we think about our progress as a committee, our strategy as a committee for where we go next and what we prioritize next. So there are programmatic issues and then visualization issues. So two different things to address that we need to consider. And I want to pass it to Ivanka to have your comment made as well.
I'm just going to go a little bit off topic and say what I need to say. The things that I hope to see when we do have a deep discussion and a deep dive into this that still keep rising up is the memorandum of understanding, which we discussed earlier a little bit. The land issues, the enforcement and jurisdiction issues. How are we going to, as an air district, work with the city? And what I know from working with residents that I respect very highly, even if they can't and won't speak up right now, that is fine. I know that sometimes I think that it's a strategy to throw too much at the resident to make them back down. And I'm not going to stand for that. Like, that's wrong. If this was purposely, and I know, Ryan, you will say it was not purposely done, but you guys are getting paid a lot. There's more staff on this phone than there are residents. It is not that difficult to do what Lisa has been asking over and over again. I wrote a visual of what she was saying in the form of a Gantt chart. Like, it's so basic on a piece of note paper because we need those links. You can and should be able to put this together for us. We shouldn't have wasted community members' time on something that you're being paid for to do ahead of time. Like, don't come to the table unprepared when I feel like I'm getting paid a little bit compared to what y'all are getting paid to come very prepared to discuss this stuff when each of you at the Air District are taking on a lead of each of these measures. So each of you should be doing your own mini Gantt chart. to bring to us. And then if you don't know how to do the Gantt chart that Lisa's talking about, somebody should know how to throw that information in there together. Something that residents have told us in community meetings with Leadership Council and with my EJ partners is that the residential burning is still an issue. I was great and glad to hear Lilia say that she saw inspectors in her neighborhood, but there's the residential burning that's still a problem. And what can we do as an air district if it's not in our jurisdiction as this committee? Then what are you going to do to support and make the connection, not just point the fingers at the city and say that's their problem or somebody else's problem, but become the advocate. The air district needs to become the advocate as a public health agency. And we're wasting a lot of time with, yes, this is important, Erica, like you just explained the two difference, but part of that could have been done without the steering committee. Bring that to us, because that's where your analytical skills should have just kind of jumped in and helped us out and have us start on a better space. So I do want to uplift the measures that we need to continue to work on, and yes, we have to, like Kim said, we have to push this so we can just really dive deeper into the CERP, because since February, when we had the resolution and the CARB hearing past this CERP, we haven't had the opportunity to do that.
I see Venice's hand, and then we'll close out this topic. And I have a comment to respond to you too as well, Ivanka. Venice, thanks for your patience.
Thanks. I really appreciate the comments from Kimberly and also from Ivanka. And I would just say that since we've now identified who the target audience is for this, we're saying that it's residents and it's our committee, that what I keep hearing is just having a document that provides accountability and transparency. And I think that if that's what we're trying to do, whatever makes the most sense in terms of a document that can be looked at and viewed, and we can understand clearly where we are, what's to be done, where we are along the pathway, that can only improve not only the implementation, but it also improves the whole process, because there is a sense of accountability. And so the thing that undermines trust is the lack of accountability and the repetition of trying to get information that seems to be withheld or just not presented. And so I really want to be able to look at the document and be clear about it and be able to share it with people who can have real questions about what is happening in one particular area and how can I track if there is real movement or if this is just a meeting that we've attended for 2 years where we cannot say we have moved from point A to point B. And so again, accountability and transparency is the basis for us having a real community engagement process. And then the last thing I would suggest is that as we redefine and reformat this, that one of the things that it makes sense to me to do is to hyperlink the health impacts so that people who are really concerned would be able to click on, if you're reducing PM 2.5 by X amount, what do you project as the expected health outcomes, so that we actually have all of this information in a way that makes sense to people and really does get to improving life conditions and improving health outcomes. That just makes sense to me. And that would just be an incredible document that the city could say, this is the work that we've done. This is the process that we've used. Here's how our community has benefited. That just seems like a benefit to everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Curry. Okay, so if I can paraphrase what everyone has said, and again, my role here is to just make sure that everyone has been heard and that we have documented some of the requests for this, specifically as it relates to how the format of the tracker moves forward. Number one, we need to tighten the language, remove redundancy, and make the content less, but increase areas and potentially columns. We'll work on the design. The Air District will have some prioritization around that, but thinking about what has been done and what status, in the last certain timeline, and making sure that there's budget, implementation, and status report kind of columns that outline kind of the progress in each one of those implementation measures. That document will then be updated and again, visually, it'll be easy to read, easy to understand for all levels of sophistication as it relates to their knowledge of air quality terminology and all of that. So it's something that you can use both with this committee, and then also if you wanted to share it with a co-resident, you could share it with a resident as well. So it's a bit of a language refinement, but then also a design refinement. I know Lisa has some examples she's going to share with the Air District, and there are others as well. But what we're hearing is this is the #1 priority to get this done. It has been something that's been discussed for a while, and I'm sensing that there is a lot of interest in not having this conversation again, but really moving into strategy. The document is really a means to an end, and the end is for this to become a strategic conversation around what happens next. How do we make this implementation impactful, and how do we measure our progress in real time, or in as much real time as possible? And so if I can paraphrase what I've heard, it's fix the formatting, fix the visualization, get that done as soon as humanly possible, schedule a future meeting very soon, hopefully in the January meeting, or at the very latest, the one after that, where we're able to talk really strategically about what residents need, what residents want to see, and how we can move the CSC conversation forward about strategic implementation and alignment, right? So there's conversations with the city, there's conversations with DPR, there's conversations with lots of other stakeholders. How do we elevate the measures that are the most important from a resident standpoint in the Q1 of 2021? Did I get that right? Thumbs up if I'm close.
One question, does that include the meeting that I've requested, you know, one of the first 2 weeks in January to talk about this and what the community wants, and to address not only Kimberly, but also Ivanka's issues that they have raised?
So yes and no. I did not commit to that because dates are crazy and holidays are crazy. What I can tell you is I got a thumbs up from Kevin and Kimberly that I'm on track with the general gist of it. As it relates to the date, out of full respect, Lisa, not entirely sure that date's possible, given that our next meeting is actually January 13th. So I want to make sure that we're reasonable about those timelines given the holidays. So I will defer to the district on the date you requested with that in mind.
Well, one of the things they could actually do is take, for example, to make sure they're going on the right track here, is maybe just the first element and work it out to what it would look like in the new format before they do all 58, because that is a lot. And maybe we should have a majority of January's meeting on that issue and start to address the issues raised by Ivanka.
Thanks for that request, Lisa. What I will do is I hear your request, and in the context of timing, what I think we can do is turn it to the Air District to respond if they feel like they can with dates in mind. And I do see Ryan's hand. I'll let Ryan respond, and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, it's always tough to hear that things aren't perfect, and you know, we definitely want a perfect process, you know, for all of you. And we're committed to finding ways. We don't want anybody walking away from meetings feeling like their time wasn't productive and it wasn't well spent. And so we're going to continue to look for ways to make sure that we are being productive in these meetings. And so maybe, like what Lisa was saying, maybe there's an opportunity where we work in trying to incorporate the recommendations that steering committee members have raised with a few of the members that have maybe shared the most first, if those members are open to that. You know, what we don't want to do is come back with something that we think we've captured what everybody wants, and then, you know, get the feedback it's still not right. And so if there are a few steering committee members that would be open to that, to work on that with us, to make sure we are capturing it the way that they want. That way, next meeting, we can, you know, more focus on the things like Kimberly is talking about, and focusing on prioritizing the measures that we have, and making sure that we're doing the work that the residents in the community want us to be focusing on.
So Ryan, are you saying, do you think that you could do maybe a hybrid of what Lisa's requested? So maybe the top half of that CERT tracker, you know, just the columns and the kind of general design without full content, but maybe 1 or 2 measures as an example before you don't do the whole 26-page thing, but just maybe do a build out of what a template could look like. Share it with, let's see, Lisa, maybe, and I'm just throwing out names of people that have offered to help, Kevin, Lisa, Ivanka, and maybe Dr. Curry, to say, does this work for you? Is this a little bit better and more in line? And then with that green light, kind of in an ad hoc basis, move forward with something a little closer for the committee so that when we have our next meeting in January, there's something a little bit more meaningful and with teeth that the committee can look at?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to play devil's advocate here. I think that the design is the least thing that we should be worrying about. I think that we need to get everything else in order and then we work on the design. And I think that that's the order that it should go in. I'm not worried about the design. I'm worried about where we're at in progress, what certain measures are being implemented, the measures that didn't make it, where are they at? Where can we move money around? How much money do we have for each measure? That's what's important to me, not the design.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
So those are 2 very different approaches. And what I will flag for you is that some people don't feel like they can talk about the progress until they understand it, right? The design, and then they can't really work on the other elements until the other pieces are done. So it's a chicken and egg. I don't know if this committee has consensus on the approach they'd like, but I do want to reflect that some need the other first and others, it's because people aren't looking at the tracker in its current state now. So I do want to be mindful of that and make sure that there's awareness that some of the content is hard to digest in its current form. So while I think Kimberly's conversation is important, I want to make sure the committee can have that conversation. How do we feel? Naomi, I see your hand.
Yeah, I agree. I was, after listening to Kim, I wanted to agree with her, but at the same time, I think that the 2 things are connected because, yes, maybe the visual, and if we put X color or that visual or not, that's not important, but it's important to know how much progress we have done and what are the things that are moving, we need to prioritize moving forward. And again, not from just a few or not from the air district's perspective, but from the residents. Of all the strategies, we have 42 or 43 strategies. We have worked on 3 or 4. So are we going to be going 4 by 4, 5 by 5? And if that's the case, if we agree to that path, what are going to be the other 4 or the other 5? So to me, that is at the top of really the formatting. I think it's connected, but to me, it's more about prioritizing which other strategies we're going to be focusing on moving forward and how we're going to continue monitoring that we're making track in these new strategies and in the 4 or 5 that we have been working on in the past year.
Okay, so we do have a bit of it's a chicken and egg, and I think what we've heard is that the next meeting is going to be a conversation around this prioritization. Part of the conversation for the next meeting will be that regardless. The question mark, it sounds like, is how do we integrate this visualization conversation? And I do think that we can make some progress in between now and the next meeting in the context of the holiday season. It's a little trying, but understanding that that is a priority, I think that's something that can be worked on. I do see Ed's hand, and I also note that it's 7:30, so I want to keep us on track. But hi, Ed, please give your comment.
Thank you. My only comment is I'm not necessarily disagreeing with any of what's been spoken. It's certainly there's strength and simplicity, but I do want to say that I believe that there needs to be reasonable understanding of outcomes. And one of them is we're working on trying to reduce wood burning in our impacted area. So how does it look for us to be successful with our wood burning piece? And I think we have to determine that so that as we move these charts and all these different ways forward, we can actually evaluate, what's going on, because I believe a lot of work has gone into the, fireplace and wood burning issues. And I'm not sure we always know what's going on as a committee necessarily. I mean, we did hear about it tonight, that there were some people that were actually out, looking for that. So just a piece that I think is really critical ultimately in how we move this forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I think what the snapshot should include sort of, are you making progress and what does success look like? And are you moving the needle in the places that you need to be moving it? And if not, why not? And how do you move those priorities appropriately? Lisa, quick comment before we finish out.
Okay, Kim and Ivanka, I am so stuck on minutia because I've been asking this for 2 years. It is very frustrating to me. Here's a quick solution for everybody, and I would like to just throw it out there really quick. You get 11.5 by 17 sheets, papers, and you put the schematic on there. Do a simple Gantt chart, do a simple Excel, I don't care. You list just straight out what the 58 projects are and give us the start and the end dates, just out there of, and fiscal years, right? Or no, calendar years, excuse me. And then bring it back to us in January, and then we can start talking about priorities. And then afterwards, they can go and start to plug in the steps, the hyperlinks, and everything else. But that would give us a starting point of what we're looking at, when are the start and stop dates, and what is going to be expended where. And we can start to move it around, because then we get a visualization, a 58-line visualization of everything and what the time looks like. Because I think that would be helpful for everybody as well. Thank you. Oh, and hard copy and mail it to everybody.
Thanks, Lisa. So I think that was recommended, and Lisa just reinforced it and pushed the timeline out to January. The question I have for this committee is one of content. Based on either of these scenarios, it looks like we're going to provide some kind of a template that you can see before we build out all 57 or however many strategies. A template first, so you can make sure that we're on the right track. But in order to have a concurrent conversation about strategies, does this committee, and specifically those maybe that haven't spoken yet, the residents, do you have enough information to talk about priorities at the next meeting if the template's not done yet? So I want us to move concurrently and keep momentum. Show of hands or wave or others, or blue hand or some kind of a raise hand. Do you feel like you have enough information based on the current SERP tracker to have a conversation about priorities and interests, or begin having that conversation at the next meeting?
Hi, this is Eric Payne, steering committee member. Excuse me. Eric, I just wanted to flag one of your comments that was previously made, centered around how we segment the document in terms of ensuring that that the Air District provides enough information for everyone related to the SERP goals. And I didn't say priorities, I said the SERP goals, because I think as we've gone through this process for quite some time now, centered around just really trying to give our work some focus, but also understanding that different stakeholders have had different priorities. And so I say all that to say, I think it would be a value add if we just had a summary in the document detailing where the Air District is related to each of the different SERP goals. And if they haven't worked on any of the goals at all, that's fine. I just think that it would help us in our decision-making process as we approach January and as we look to planning for the next year, so we can really give our work some focus.
So if I'm hearing you right, Eric, I'm hearing you say you need you need that progress meter in the document before you can have a meaningful conversation in January about that. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And again, this wonderful holiday timeline that we all love does complicate things a little bit. I do know that we are out of time. We're 7 minutes over, and I want to be respectful for those of you that need to wrap up. I think what we have heard is that there is dramatic and consensus around getting this topic discussed as soon as possible. Prioritization of the measures that are discussed by the committee, but also the visualization elements of the tracker. So what I will say is that based on, there's two different paths, and I think we can figure them out behind the scenes with the intention of being as productive as possible at the January meeting. There may be some behind the scenes conversations with the leadership team around how this comes together. But I do think that we have heard what is needed in the tracker from a design standpoint. We can map out a template and potentially see if the Air District has the time and the flexibility to add that content in before the next meeting. And if so, build an agenda that reflects not only a review of that tracker, but also some preliminary conversations around how the CSC wants to move forward and prioritize for 21, given that some items have not been addressed yet as we've been going through circumvention. So I've heard that, I've moved that forward. I do want to get us closed out on this meeting out of respect for everyone's time. So moving forward, we do have a marching orders for the SERP tracker. I want to thank you all for the comments, the very honest dialogue. I do want to reflect that the lawn and garden incentive measure conversation will be moved to another agenda item, not today, just to make sure that we wrap up as soon as we can. And I do want to give us an opportunity to connect with our members of the public. I will ask Heather and others that are monitoring the Facebook page if there are any public comments at this time.
There are not. Thank you.
Great. And I know that there have been some public comments in the chat. Most of them have been answered, and I want to be thankful to those people for dropping your comments in the chat. At this time, we always do note new agenda items. I think we've got our agenda item for the January meeting, and the next few meetings, we understand the priorities, and I think the committee's been very forthcoming about priorities there. If you have additional requests, drop those agenda item requests in the chat to be reflected for future meetings. And then we do have another meeting scheduled for January 13th. And we are always looking for community co-hosts. I don't know that we have a community co-host lined up yet. Heather or Jamie, can you let us know if we have somebody already volunteered? And if not, we would love a volunteer for a future meeting. You can volunteer by putting your name in the chat or reaching out at any point, certainly via email and raising your hand now. And then I will turn it over to our host and our community co-host for any parting comments before we close this meeting out.
Erica, I had a quick question. Can we please add to next month's agenda item a budget update where we can receive a line item of what has been what is to be allocated in the next year and what has already been spent?
Thank you. Yes, we can do that, or at least I can record that, and we will add that to the request for the agenda.
And then the other thing also too is, can we also talk about the calendar dates for our meeting schedule? Because I know I'm not going to be available the first Thursday of the month.
That is certainly something that the Air District will be able to work with you on, and I will make sure that the Air District team has that noted.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Erica,
you.
this is Eric Payne. I just wanted to share an affirmation and congratulate Commissioner Randolph, who is from the California Public Utilities Commission, who was just appointed to CARB. And so we are indeed excited about the leadership that CARB, that the governor is appointing to the board. So I just want to thank you, and thank you for your time, and thank everybody for today's meeting.
Eric, that's a great point. And to piggyback on it, Dr. Pacheco Warner, Nayamin is applauding, I agree, will also be the San Joaquin Valley representative to the CARB board starting at the first of the year as well.
Exciting. Thank you, Jamie.
And on those nice notes or celebratory notes, I just want everybody to congratulate Isabel Vargas. Today is her birthday, and she spent this special night with us.
Oh, happy
You know
birthday,
me.
Isabel.
Wait, no. You're not going to get away without singing happy birthday.
I mean, went there.
So I'm a big fan of a quick birthday. So unmute yourself. I'm going to count us down. We're going to be quick. 5, 6, 7, 8. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Isabel. Happy birthday
To you.
We all
Feliz
need to go to choir practice.
Feliz
Feliz cumpleaños.
Gracias.
Happy birthday,
gracias.
Isabel.
Thank you.
Well, in the spirit of celebrations, this is our last meeting before the holiday season officially kicks off. I think Hanukkah is the first day of Hanukkah today, and then we've got Christmas coming up shortly thereafter. Happy holidays to everyone. I want to make sure that our Air District and City co-hosts have the opportunity to close us out.
Same, Erica. Just want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays. Thank you so much for continuing to work with us and being understanding as we look to make this a good process for all of you.
On behalf of the City of Fresno, we just want to say thank you very much for allowing us to be to come alongside of you and be advisors in this process. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, a Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy Hanukkah.
Thanks, Gregory. Excellent. Well, thank you all for the extra time today. It was a really important conversation, and we like to leave that time and that space for you to have that dialogue. So I appreciate the extra 13 minutes. But with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Same to
everyone.
you.
Safe out there.
Gracias.
Stay safe.